Wonderful, and I'm glad you've come. Tonight we're going to listen to two poets. Maria Mallory, who is from North Andover, is going to read to us some of her poetry from her adolescent years and some from current years. And Susan LaFortune is going to read some of her poetry, and we'll talk a bit about the poems, and then we'll have a chance to look at the books and maybe buy some books. We always have Rick's light refreshments on the counter. They do have nuts in them. And we'll get started so we can hear about your poetry.
My book is called Walking on the Blade. I will read a few poems and then I'll answer questions and we'll take it from there. King Heroin. King Heroin is the mightiest ruler of all. He conquers your mind, your body, your soul. He is very thorough when it comes to you. You never know just when he will strike. You only know he's there. He is always victorious. He is the absolute ruler of you. King Heroin is a bizarre and creepy thing. Different, huh? King Heroin, even though you behave as a cruel, ruthless, and brutal king, I will never be a property of your domain. The feeling of love. Love is an emotion, a feeling when you don't know what is happening to your whole being. Your mind, your body are transformed into clouds of joy. You don't realize it is love because there are times love can't be defined. You just know it is the greatest feeling in the world. When you have this feeling, try to hold on to it as tightly as you can, because you will be able to define love when you no longer have it. Saying nothing. Saying nothing is what it's all about. He wanted that. Writing on lines words that left no meaning or no real purpose. He wanted that. I had no real purpose. I was just here and there. He wanted that. My words were just space eaters and space savers, words that could ramble on and on forever and ever. He wanted that. People can also ramble on and on forever, not by words, but by the loss of words, rambling in turmoil. Let us think and recall to mind what we three are all about. Let us recapture our lives and bring back a whole unity of three determined strivers for a better life. He doesn't want that. We are over. We have ended. What a time. It is also very strange. It's as a rainbow appears with power to make you quiver. It will disappear right in front of your eyes, leaving your heart, your soul, and mind so very, very barren. Use me. You use me for a walk, for a smile. You use me for all you can. You act as if we are one and I am your world. The comical thing is that I use you as you use me. The world today. Where are you? If you can find yourself in it, then maybe, just maybe, you were really sent by God. Beverly asked me to read this poem. To my dear bitch of an algebra teacher. I'm sure we all had a teacher, high school, elementary school, college. I despise you. That's if you don't already know it. You conduct a zoo, not a class. You are the zookeeper, and we, your students, are your monkeys. You make the average student feel like an imbecile. You make the bright student feel like a god. In your class, I feel like a piece of cheese, ready to be consumed by a pack of mice. I am lost. I don't appreciate your method of teaching. So speaking for the entire class, dear bitch of an algebra teacher, please drop dead.
Wow.
Did she give that to her?
No, by the time I did the book, she had passed away. The gift of hope. Hope comes in short baby steps. 10 forward, then 6 back. It never lasts too long. Snatch it up and run quickly with it. The marathon of hope begins. You don't need to win the race. Just cross the finish line so your hope becomes the rare gift of a dream come true. People sometimes ask me if how I write, and this poem sort of explains it. I call it the flow. The flow of words with quality and a similar connection come very quickly to me. I must get them fast in my mind, or they will disappear. I grab a pen, paper, and a poem begins, so cool and calmly from my brain through my heart to my pen onto a piece of paper. How a small, simple flow ends with such a huge smile on my face can't ever be really explained. Does anyone have any questions?
What inspired you to start actually writing things down? What age were you? I mean, were you like,
I was 14.
did you do this when
I
you
was
did it when you
14,
were younger?
Yeah, I was 14, lived at Salisbury Beach every summer.
And you
And
just
I
started?
used to have these thoughts, and at first I had no clue what it was. And then one day, I don't know, I was doing a book report, and I just ripped off another piece of paper, and I wrote a poem.
And it's different parts of your life as you were growing
No, it's
older,
not
or
all.
just?
It's not really all about me. It's like I could have been, with my 2 little babies in a park, having so much fun, and the thought would come to me about, I don't know, someone depressed, and I would just write a poem. It's a very different, it's hard to explain. Plus, I counsel battered women. So, it's the dark side of poetry, and life is walking on blade.
Mhm.
And if you're not careful and you don't choose the right path, you cut yourself. And you have to be careful.
Is this your first publication?
Yes,
Yes. And you're working on more?
yes, yes.
Do you think you'll do some happy stuff?
I don't know, it's all,
It all just
it's
depends
all
on what hits you.
what hits me.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that I'm sad.
No.
Like in high school, I could have been dating, the hottest lifeguard on the beach, but I could have written the saddest poem. That's just how I
Just how
write.
it comes out.
Right.
Did you keep a journal? Excuse me. Did you keep a journal all your life?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes, I did.
Is that what you were gonna?
Yeah, also I was gonna just, if you got that notion to do something, you just write it down, keep it somewhere, and just add it like in a book form,
That's just what I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that whenever you just keep adding them
Right,
in,
that's
and then
it. Yeah, and
decide.
sometimes I write on a paper towel, because if I don't write it quickly,
That's
It's
what
gone.
I
There could
would
be
do
time in
something
between.
for reading.
yeah,
The
that's it,
next
it
time
just
you do it.
goes. And if I try to think of it, 5 minutes later, it's gone. The whole thought, because it just comes right out. And,
I believe Ruth Stone said that writing poetry is like a freight train coming, and either you get on or it runs you over.
that's right.
Oh.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of
Yeah.
like Yeah, don't stay on the track. Hop on, get out of the way. That's just it, and that's just what it's like for writing. It's very different than people that write books. Very, very different. Their thought process is very different than poetry. Yeah.
Does that mean it's exclusive to you, or do you write other forms, just poetry?
I did keep a journal. The type, when I was married to someone who was very intelligent, helped find the cure for one of the strains of breast cancer. And I kept a journal through my marriage life. You know, being just married to someone, you know, that intuitive and not much was a challenge. And I'm writing a book. And so it'll take a while, but my poetry is my favorite. And all the illustrations are water because I am a water girl. I have my boater's license, my lobster license. I've always lived on the water, and I always will. Yes. And I want to thank you all for coming.
Do you have a particular kind of verse that you use? Any number of stanzas? Any pentameter? You know, that you felt you just write?
It's the flow.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's just, yes, I get it. I get a thought, and then I process it just a few seconds, and I know I have a good idea, and I just write it down.
Do you revise them continually? Your poem?
Never. No, usually the way I write it, the first time is how it stays.
Mm.
And the folks that did my book, there's no editing with poetry because you can use slang and proper English, you can swear, and as you think it, you write it. Where in books it's very different. You can't say, I ain't gonna do none, but in a poem you can.
What do you think about teaching poetry? Do you think it's
I would
possible?
love to,
Would you?
yes, especially to young kids, to let them know that it's okay and it's a freestyle thing, and but you have to have the gift to do it. You
can't train their ear or help them to see.
Well, I could help them if they think they have a talent or they get those thoughts. I wasn't sure really what was happening to me. I would get these beautiful thoughts about the ocean and the black rocks and just anything. And like I said, if I didn't have that paper and pen with my book report, I don't know. But so then, for my 50th birthday, I said, it's time to do this. Yes.
That's good.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay, this is a little weird for me sitting down. I never sit down. So this is my book, Talking in My Sleep. I live in Haverhill, Massachusetts. How this book came about is that I won a contest for a chapbook contest. So I won a contest for Finishing Line Press. It was their chapbook contest. I was a semi-finalist. So they offered me a publication. It's taken about a year and a half to finally get it in hand with me. So I'm very proud of it. And we can just begin, I guess. If you don't purchase any of the books, that's completely fine. I do have these free bookmarks that everyone can have. Who doesn't love bookmarks? It has a cute little poem on it that I wrote. When life hands you lemons, don't make lemonade. That's too much work. Just eat that fruit raw and spit the seeds back out at fate. It has my email, if anyone wants my email. Okay. Is it okay if I stand?
Sure.
Okay.
I sit.
Poetry is passion. Okay, poetry is passion. You can't just sit there. Is this good?
That's great.
Okay, talking in my sleep. A lot of poems in this book, and a lot of poetry that I write are about my mother, who passed away in 2000 from diabetes complications. I also write a lot about my father, who he was very absent in my life, even though he was at the dinner table every night. And now, at this point in time, he has incurable cancer. And he's constantly asking for me, wants to see me. And that's something, I do visit him, but it's like visiting a stranger. So that's a lot of, poetry like that. I was also married before and divorced and married again. There's a lot of love and divorce poems and just poems. The act of ironing. On the radio, she listens to songs that make her heart sad. Mine too, but just for her. She's lonely, only has me. I try to understand their broken love. What made him leave? Stop loving someone so beautiful. I don't understand him at all. How he lives without us, without me. She irons and pretends love still exists in each carefully pressed piece for him to wear for another girl. This next poem is actually the only poem in this book that I do swear at. This poem was inspired by someone who told me that I absolutely could not be a poet if I didn't have an MFA. So I wrote up a poem, The Brilliant Mind. I am uneducated, don't know the language, so go to school, you say. Go to school to do what? Waste time away from my family only so I can converse with you? I don't even like you, pompous ass. From what I understand about schooling, it is to learn to think for yourself. And you had to go to school for that? You paid thousands to educate your mind, to come to understand your own thinking. Be creative, ponder the world around you, and figure out what to do next. You could tell me about 100 authors and the pieces they've written, and spit back thoughts debated for years. You know the meaning of pie. I know how to bake one. You know of the history, the theories, the sciences. You put commas in their proper place and periods where they should be. I don't like periods. They mean you've completed a sentence, a thought. I enjoy run-ons, my thoughts infinite, while your thoughts plagiarized. The thoughts of some other scholar who also paid thousands to learn, speak, and teach the same bullshit. I am a working, uneducated girl. I am creative and think for myself. I know my next move all for free. Do you have a job with that master's degree? Although I do wish that I did have a master's degree. It's just not in the cards right now. Let's see. It's called Our Home. We looked at brick and stone houses with big yards, small kitchens, sidewalks, driveways, ranch colonials, foursquare. Here, walking down old steps, a moldy basement. Chalk-dusted lines kept score of some game little boys played when Mom said, "Go play downstairs." Nothing but a crusty old basement, concrete, cracked floor, rock-built walls, but above the dryer, a note still stood, written on notebook paper in crayon. A reminder to empty the lint trap, or we could have a fire, love Mom. And we bought it, the old foursquare, because a mother lived here, a mother lives here, and I miss mine so much. So I have two children. One is 15, he's in high school, and the other is 5. And when he was, the 5-year-old was a baby, he was definitely a rocker in the middle of the night. Wanted Mommy to rock him, and a lot of great, wonderful poems came out of those moments. This is one of them. Of all the pushing. In and out of sleep during twilight, a glowworm illuminates a room. Soft light colors to help him sleep bring no comfort to his aching mouth. White boulders pushing to the surface, trying to break free, break out, to be something other than just a little raised bump. Reminding me of his head pushing out, breaking me, breaking free, just doing what nature calls for. Why does it hurt so much? The first time hurts for everything. Slowly preparing for years of continuous pushing, The first push is always the hardest. This is one that always some man comes up to me later and says, I don't believe that's true. On being a girl, how does it feel with his hand pushing you down, trying to hold you lower than you hold yourself? Get used to that hand, girl. It never lets up. This poem, it's about my dad. This is actually a form, and I'm sorry if I'm going to say it incorrectly. It's a triolet. It's a French form.
Triolet.
Yes, thank you very much. And sometimes I do that. I'll look up a form and I'll just write in form, and this one I happen to like a lot. All that I have. An oasis in my memory. Daddy, eating, dressing, leaving, gone. Girl looking back from mirrored glass at me. An oasis in my memory. His face and my face, a mirage in similarity. The scent of him lingers like fresh cut lawn. An oasis in my memory. Daddy eating, dressing, leaving, gone. This is a favorite of, I go to a lot of poetry events, I do a lot of open mic venues. Hopefully you will hear my name everywhere, and if you don't, then please say it. I also write short fiction, flash fiction, and memoir, so hopefully you'll hear anything. Old Egyptian cotton. We sleep in dirty sheets and secrets wrapped around us, binding us together like how you love the girl next door, because she cooks dinner every night. And you can smell her perfume in the morning as you cook eggs, imagining her dressing for work. You look at me thinking how you picked the wrong girl because I forgot to put on makeup and my hair is dirty again. You haven't touched me since we moved here. She has taken up residence in your lust. And we sleep each night in dirty sheets and secrets wrapped around us like how I am the girl next door. I haven't touched you since we moved here. And eggs taste better with a friend. I'll end. Okay. All right, sorry. Eviction. The notice came today for her. He left just 24 hours ago. The little one looks at Cheerios floating in her cereal bowl. Whole grain life jackets, unsinkable. He crunches his toast reading about dead zombies, and no one seems to notice him kicking the dog under the table until it bites his sister's leg. Mother's hand stings. Heartache comes full circle. Daughter. A girl tries to rid herself of this man, one who gave her life, tales twisted around the roots of someone she was then. This man cries now, hugs her, saying words of her mother's language, professing love for a daughter, his, one he doesn't know. Remembering years long forgotten, moments unattended, settles in her soul like cold soup, still nourishing yet best served warm. A quilted blanket hangs loosely on bony knees for comfort to conceal the unmentionables. Her hand rests on top, keeping everything from spilling out. I'm going to read you a very short flash memoir piece. He is asking for me now. I hear in his voice sincerity, almost afraid that I have gone. I come back into the room then and hold his hand. He resembles a small child, sheepish that he needs someone. I have my mother's features. This surprises people sometimes. They think for a moment I am her, and I wonder if this is how my father feels now. When he asks for me, I wonder if he needs my comfort, but not sure why. He loved her at one point in his life, his first love, the one who knows you best. He's not senile in any way, confusing the past and the present, but the feeling of home when your love sits by your side, all the pain subsides, and you're not alone, not nearly as afraid. Or looking at me makes him sad more, missing someone he needs now, and I am the closest thing to her. When he closes his eyes and I speak to him, her soft-spoken voice wraps around mine, and he is young again, starting over. When he tells me he loves me, he has tears for this daughter and a love he let unravel as a ball of string, the end tied around our fingers as a reminder nothing yet is lost. I'm going to end with this poem. I end with this poem at every poetry reading. It's dedicated to my mother, Carlene Roy. My muse. In the middle of the night, they would come to me in dreams, poems spilling out, waking as if I were choking on the letters. Started writing them on the wallpaper, in the dark, no light with a pencil. Low in between the wall and my bed, so no one would see. Morning would come, and she stood there waiting, questioning, why would I write on my wall? Tears kept my voice swollen, no way to avoid the punishment, defacing the home we lived in. I will forget the words by morning. My mother hands me a flashlight and a pen. Thank you. Okay, questions, anything? Ask me anything. It doesn't even have to be poetry or writing.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you feel that you want to forgive your father and you can't, or you don't want to forgive him?
I feel, that's a very hard question. I just want to know him as a person, and I don't even care if it's a father person or just a person. I feel like he's a very complete stranger, and at this point in time, I don't know how to make that happen. This past maybe 6 or 7 months, we have definitely spent time together and seen each other. I mean, I had not seen him in 6 or 7 years, so there is definitely more forgiveness going on. He actually has a copy of this book, and the only thing he said to me is, I read your poems. But I do know that he talks about me to, his friends that visit him, and so it's a hard situation, but I think that we're both taking the steps necessary to maybe fix things.
Will you
a little.
have enough time to fix things?
I hope every day that I leave him, I know that it was better than the day before, and that's all I can do.
Good.
I thought when you read that last piece and got to the lines about writing on the wall, it was such a flash of recognition.
Yes.
Marie, did you make a connection?
I should have written on the wall.
Make a towel.
A towel, I know.
Paper,
Anything, whatever I could grab.
Yeah, it was true. I mean, I did, I'd wake up, and I mean, this is when I was little, and I just didn't want to forget the words, and, it was a few times when my mother's like, why are you writing on the wall, She said, well, we were going to actually re-wallpaper the wall, so she said, you know what, right away.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
What permission.
Yes, she was wonderful.
So your poems are like therapy for you.
Yes, writing itself is therapy for me, and even when it's not personally about me, it's very therapeutic to be able to share something with someone else and someone else and someone else.
And to get it out.
Yes, yeah, they are very therapeutic. The act of writing is therapeutic.
So you kept it up along the years, just constantly?
Yes,
doing
yes,
stuff?
this is a new
What
book
is it?
that I have, but yes, I've been writing since I was small. I actually wanted to work for Hallmark cards. That's what I was going to do, and then I just didn't, but yeah, I actually gave up my job in January to pursue my writing career. So I do have a part-time job and cleaning houses, and I write as much as I possibly can, and I teach workshops when I can, I really just love writing, and like she said, she really wants to work with younger kids, and I find that too. I have a lot of my son's friends, you know, the girls, they tell me, you know, I write poetry, and I'm like, let me read it, you know, let's talk about it. I really think that there are so many writers out there, and they want to find an outlet to get published or do something with it, and I say go for it. There's a wonderful magazine called Poets and Writers. If anyone's interested, I'm sure maybe the library has it, or you can get it at any bookstore. They have tons of contests and magazines and literary magazines you can submit to, and it's great to share your work like that and read, and I love reading other people's works. That's probably my favorite thing is reading those new up and coming readers and writers and what they're writing about.
Do you know if they actually teach poetry at any of the English classes?
They
Schools?
do.
I've never really heard that. Okay.
Yeah, they do. They still teach poetry. They still teach the
But a
same.
lot of it is by rules.
Yes, the
There's-
same old.
There's the rhyming.
have to
Which I absolutely
and
think
the,
is important.
And the limericks, which is fine, but if someone told you had to write in rhymes, could you? I couldn't.
I could.
You could, I couldn't.
It would take a little while.
Yeah, no, I couldn't, because the word I want to use
Doesn't
I
rhyme.
might not be able to write.
I used to rhyme all the time. All my poems are very rhymey in form, and I did a lot of forms. And then I started writing more in free verse. And sometimes I do rhymes and you know, verse poetry. But I think in schools, sometimes you have to get the kids interested, and then you can show them what they're learning, and show them with more traditional poetry.
No, I never went by the rules. One of my high school friends is here, and she can tell you, I never went by the rules.
Do you think most poets are kind of rebels?
Oh, the ones I know, yes. I lived in Stonington, Connecticut for 30 years. It's a very artsy community near Mystic, Connecticut. And, oh yeah, we're a breed of our own, and it's wonderful. And I still do. I was the family rebel. I wasn't bad, right, Leah? I just said what I was tactful and said what I had to say, but, you know, I wanted to change the high school.
Or at least one teacher.
Right.
Well, I was in high school, school so many years ago, but I just remember, I thought everything had to rhyme back in the day.
Right.
Way
That's how
back.
I taught it.
Yeah.
That's the way they taught it, so
Yeah, our
I just
English
thought,
classes,
yeah.
we had to rhyme, or
Yeah.
those limericks, the
Yeah.
first two
Yeah.
lines, then the next two, and then the
Yeah.
last one rhymes with the first two, or however it
Yeah.
works,
Yeah.
right.
They definitely still teach. My son came home today, Caden, he's 5 in kindergarten, and he says, Mommy, and he knows all about poetry. He will listen to, he has a huge book of poetry, and this is, you know, every poet in the world. And he will listen to it, and then he'll say, what does that mean? And I'll explain it to him, but he just loves listening
That's
to
great.
how the words form. But he came home today and says, Mommy, we learned about poetry on apples, and my teacher had apples, and it was called haki, and I said haiku, and he says yes, haiku. So she was teaching them haiku on these apples that she had placed around the, you know, cutout apples, and I suppose they were making their own poetry. But even in kindergarten, they're starting with the poetry, so that gives me fantastic hope. And you know, in this area, Merrimack Valley area, the North Shore area, poetry is growing by leaps and bounds, and there's so many more readings going on, and many more open mic readings, and the younger kids are really getting into
Right.
it.
And when
is
we were
wonderful.
younger, no one knew I wrote poetry because you'd be criticized. And, you know, that was something I kept to myself. My high school friends would have thought I was crazy. But today it's okay for kids to do that. It really is okay. And even a lot of my family didn't know. John Mallory, when I said, you know, I'm going to publish my book, I got a company that wants to do my book. He said, I didn't know you wrote poetry. And it's sad, because we kept it, you just kept it a secret, but now kids are proud of what they do today.
Go
You were
ahead.
talking about your father,
Mhm.
it's probably, I don't know if it's valid or not, but I was thinking of Robert Frost's The Hard Hand, who goes away and comes back home, which is defined as the place that you go, and if you go, they have to take you in. And I was thinking of you as the home, and he is the hard hand.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm very involved with Robert Frost and the Robert Frost Hoots at Cafe Azteca in Lawrence and the Robert Frost Foundation. So that that means a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
For both of you, who do you read poetry? Which ones do you feel influenced by?
I don't have a favorite one. I don't, because they're all so different, and everyone's got their own style, that I couldn't pick, you know, his idea was better than her idea or their talent, because I understand, you know, how they write, and everyone's different.
So name the top 5.
I like a lot of the newer poets. I just had names in my head. Like January Gill O'Neill. I love her work. Rebecca Faust. I love her work. Jill McDonough. Yes, who has a copy of my poem and this bookmark. I belong to Boxford Poetry Circle, and we discuss different poets every time. And I was so inspired after we studied Richard Blanco that on the way home I had a poem in my head. And when I got in the driveway, I always have notebook and pen, and I sat there. I could see my husband peering out the window, like, why is she in the car? And I wrote about 4 poems in the car.
Wow.
And one of them actually made it.
We sound crazy when we say that, but I totally understand
No,
where
it
you're coming
happens.
from. Because if you wait too long, the whole thing is gone.
Yes.
I can't.
The rawness of the poem is gone, and you
Yeah.
can revise it later, which I usually do revise. Sometimes some poems are completely how they are, but at most of my poems I change this word and that word and change this verse and. But yes, so I wrote a poem, and it was titled "Driving Home After Poetry Circle, Richard Blanco Night." and I saw him recently at the Frost. There was a reading at the Frost Farm in Derry, and he presented, and I gave it to him. And there was actually going to be an open mic, which was canceled at the last minute. So I was so sad I couldn't read it to him in person, but he did get it. But yeah, he's fantastic. Yeah, Richard Blanco, hands down, is one of my top 5. But yeah, and other poets. I mean Emily Dickinson, Ruth Stone, Gwendolyn Brooks. Robert Frost.
Billy Collins.
I don't know.
Oh,
That's his.
I got
That's his.
I must.
really from Walt Whitman,
Yes.
Yeah.
Coleridge.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I think that there's fantastic poems in anybody that writes poems.
There's some bad stuff.
There are some bad. There are definitely bad poems. Nick Flynn also. He wrote another Bullshit Night in Suck City, the memoir. But he first started writing poetry, and some of his poems are really great.
Do either of you consider rap to be poetry?
Absolutely.
I
Yes.
think that's one of the ways in with kids.
I think part of the problem, though, is they think that's the only way. That it has to be hard, and it doesn't.
Rap is never soft.
No, it isn't.
Well, sometimes,
Right now,
but it's just
yeah.
deep.
Yeah, and its meaning is always,
Hmm
um,
I think when I think that
Negative.
rap artists definitely they write like we write, and then they bring it to the studio.
and the rapper
then-
is the one
and
that's
then
right.
The whole entire program is changed, and their beautiful words that they've written so deeply about themselves are changed and switched and moved to make it seem more, I don't want to say grotesque, but raunchy.
It's
and
vulgar too.
commercial.
And it's-
Yeah, and
it's
those
vulgar.
were not even part of their original words. You know. That's my feeling.
Makes sense.
That does.
But that's definitely a great way to connect with the younger kids. I do a lot of workshops with a girl that I know, and she works in like the Lawrence school system, and she does a lot with the Lawrence kids and their spoken word and all of that. And sometimes I get to meet those kids, and the things they write about are very similar to what you and I feel. It's just on a whole different level. You know, they're talking about their parents fighting. They're talking about their parents fighting physically, and, you know, something so much worse than what you could understand. And it's great for them to get that out there.
If any of you have any connections, I work part-time now with any schools that want to have workshops for young children who feel like they have a gift of writing or who want to learn maybe how to write. Give it a shot. Please give them my name. I would love to help kids because it's a good thing.
Absolutely.
It's a good thing.
Actually, the funny thing about this bookmark is that I tend to hand these out like randomly sometimes. If I'm talking to somebody, I'm like, oh, here's my bookmark. And they always read the poem and laugh and say, thank you. You know, that made my day. And I think that's sort of what poetry is.
Put one in here.
Sure. It connects people. You know, it connects people. All writing does. Is that
Well,
it?
excellent.
Yes.
I have to interrupt. Thank you. That was great, and I love hearing you refer to the trio A because it's a form that I've tried many
I
times.
love it.
I haven't succeeded with it yet, but I'll keep working at it.
Keep working. It's a good one.
A lot of what I taught my 8th graders were related to the Psalms. I was a social studies history teacher, and so we looked back at a lot of the anti-war songs and a lot of John Lennon's work, and found the poetry in that, and really relished the use of the language. I think anytime we can get the kids to use language, appropriate language, it's worth it. And,
Yes.
and the younger kids, when I taught elementary, we had Jack Prolatsky's work and Shel Silverstein's work. They were just beautiful. And Mother Goose.
Yep.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
Mother
Oh, Mother
Goose rhymes.
Goose, yeah, right.
All of it rhymes. So, okay, well, if you want to look at their books and purchase their books, this is the time. And Rick's Brownies are still over there on the side. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much.
This is a good job for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.